half of me wishes it was tomorrow, and half of me wishes I had 2 months to get everything done where I was comfortable that it was perfect. It'll be, from the standpoint of being responsible for organizing it, it's really tense until it gets going. As a fan of competition and athletics, I don't think I've ever been as excited about an event as this, because there's 75 entrants. I think easily 60 of them could win. The backyard is so fundamentally different from other running events where, the World Championship Marathon, you can narrow it down to 4, maybe 5 people. One of them will win. But in the backyard, even the runners that I don't put in that 60, one of them could pop up in it. Of course, there's two separate parts to it. The biggest part is the regular runners, who are still much in the same place as they were at the very beginning. Once we realized the potential, trying to achieve certain distances, because it's a great format for people to do personal goals. The elite athletes have developed into a pretty large core group, and they collectively have continued to increase their knowledge of how to utilize this format and perfect the use of it. We were shocked when they got to 60 hours, and wasn't much longer before people said, do you think 100 is even possible? But now a lot of the runners, a lot of those guys that are up in the 90 range already, they're looking at 120. The depth of the competition is so great that they're thinking of that to be in the contest. They feel like they're going to have to reach that. So it's a tribute to humans' ability to just continually push that boundary of what's possible further and further out. The ones that are successful really are they're looking at the market of just the average runner, the new runners, the people who have been running for a while. A lot of people will use it to go further than they've ever gone. I know that some people use it as a training tool, like if they're going to run 100-miler. 24 hours in a backyard really helps them solidify that distance physically and mentally. And so they'll use it as a training tool to race at a distance they haven't run before, running that distance for time. So it's, and then of course there's the championship level, where my predilection as a lifelong athlete is competition should always be decided on the field, and that an athlete's progress should be determined by his performance. So they really have embraced the idea, here's a clear-cut qualifying procedure, and you can start with any race, and as long as you keep winning, you can keep advancing, and you can go to a world championship just because you want it enough. The best part is, from the social aspect, you can run with anybody on any lap just because you want to, and you see everybody every lap, but in the little interval in between. And and then it's the nature of the game that even at Biggs and the World Championship, everyone wants everyone else to do well, because you can only, whatever level they achieve will be what they did as a group. If someone wants to reach 120 and turn the world on its ear, somebody has to get to 119. There's a lot of different approaches people run. Some of them will run faster loops for more rest. Some of them run slower for less of a beating. But ultimately, the backyard is decided up here. You have to be really stubborn, and people don't appreciate the two crucial things. One is to go to the starting line every time. Once you reach the point that there's a lot of significant physical discomfort involved, you have to be willing to get out of your chair and walk to the line over and over and over every hour. And the other one is that you have to maintain an even keel. You can't have a weak moment. If you're sitting in your chair and you just think, oh God, I can't start another one. And then in 3 minutes you think, oh God, what was I thinking? It doesn't matter because they started and you weren't there. And or you in bigs where that you pass back by the scoring area at the very beginning of the loop. You can't stop there and hand them your chip, because when you're done, you're done. And it can happen. It just takes a moment. So those two things I think are really critical to success. As a competitor, the hardest part of the backyard is you never know how much longer it's going to last. The only time you know when it's going to end is if you're the last person on the last lap. Yeah, I looked at that year that you were tying 2019 when it only went to 60. If you had said it's a 60-hour race, there's probably 10 or 12 people in that field who would have made it 60 hours, because once you know how far you're going to go, but to have it always be open-ended. As myself as a runner, I think in a lot of ways I would have been good at the backyard, but then I remember how much I relied on knowing where the finish was and knowing how much I had left. It would be it's a whole different paradigm when at any time it could end in one more lap or it could be 2 more days. It really started out just because I wanted to have a race in my backyard. That's how the whole backyard concept came to be. But as it's developed into a championship of backyard running, it's kind of ideal to test a runner who's a complete runner. The trail course, they go out and back a little over a quarter of a mile so that people can spread out before they hit the single track. And then the single track, it doesn't have giant climbs, but it does have up and down. There's rocks and there's roots. There's places where it's a nice smooth path and places where it's a little more rocky and you have to do some step downs and step ups and things. So a runner has to be a competent trail runner, but it's not a course, obviously from past performances, it's not a course that you can't do over and over for days in time. It's a little harder during the day loops to get much time to sleep. Then when it gets dark, after the first running, we found out people could not, the trail is hard enough that when it's dark, they just can't hardly do it in time. So now you have 50% of the race. It's a nice road out and back, and it's got a little bit of a grade the last mile, and there's a little climb at the end, which when you've done it enough times, people who run ultras will tell you even a small hill becomes a mountain after a couple of days. But it's one that the runners can run really quickly and get a few more minutes for sleeping and things like that, which is convenient because it's at night in the dark. But then they switch back to the trail, and that first hour on the trail is always a challenge because you got to loosen your trail legs back up and get used to a different running. Of course, as a runner, halfway through the day, they start thinking, I wish I was on the road. I wish I was on the road. And then halfway through the night, they think, I wish I was back on the trail. Of course, the whole backyard thing, getting to know the different people where that I'm working with them on organizing things and putting together their championships. And I think we use the word culture for different groups of people, but I think it's really more like personality. We are all more alike than we are different, but I think of the Brazilians, the Vietnamese, the Japanese, and each their national approach to it, and then the people I work with who are all so enthusiastic and ambitious to do well. It's been a real joy to get to meet people from all over the world and actually work with them so that you get to kind of know them and then see how as a nation, like the Brazilians for a long time, they were struggling to get to 24. And it became more and more of a thing. Now they're up somewhere and their record is somewhere in the 30s and their races have really succeeded at the top end. And it's a it's the outcome of people setting their goals high and having ambitions just like we do. And then there's other countries like Vietnam, where the Vietnam and the US have kind of all not well, and France is the same. Not all of our history is that great. But now here we are, as that I feel these people that I'm working with there, they're my friends. And that the world can leave history behind and today's people can be together. And then, like I said at the beginning, as a sports fan, what a dream come true. It's like if you built a football field in your backyard and then they said, oh, we're going to have the World Cup finals at your house. How happy would you be